Hi and welcome. I'm Lisa. Thanks for joining me here on the Whimsy Stamps YouTube channel. So today it's all about alcohol ink backgrounds and a few ways to use them with your Whimsy products. First, I want you to protect yourself, work in a well-ventilated area, wear a mask, open a window, have a fan going. Just be sure you're protecting yourself. Also, you want to protect your work surface. These alcohol inks do splatter. So I cover my work surface with a silicone mat. You can see it's stained, but that's okay because I only use it for alcohol inks. I also keep paper towels readily available for quick cleanup. I am going to be attempting to do the hair dryer technique. I have an inexpensive blow dryer and it has a cool low setting on it. Now, you're going to see a lot of people use this little air blower and they squeeze it with their hand. I can't do that because my hands are in horrible shape. So I'm going to use my rechargeable airbrush. The whole reason I bought the airbrush was for this to do alcohol inks. So if you have any issues with your hands, that might be an option for you. Let's talk about blender solutions and isopropyl alcohol. There is a difference, okay? So with the blender solution, this T-Rex blender solution is what I use. It actually has isopropyl alcohol in it, but it also has three other ingredients: ethanol, methoxy, and propanol in it. And it gives it this very silky, smooth feel to it. And it does give you softer edges, whereas the isopropyl alcohol tends to leave some pretty harsh edges unless you're moving really quick with it. We know that the isopropyl alcohol is cheaper than blending solution, and I think that's why most of the people use it instead of the blender solution, and that's okay. I use it too. You just need to know when to use the right product. So we're going to talk a little bit about that later in the video as well. To get us started, I'm going to be using some translucent Yupo paper. This is a large sheet that I'm working with here. I've laid down some orange and pink colors here on my Yupo paper, and I'm adding some alcohol to them. Now, I use those little pin needle bottles. I find I have much better control with them than I do with any other bottles. Even the bottles that the alcohol inks come in, you don't have any control. You tilt the bottle, it just comes out. So a lot of times I will actually put my ink into those plastic bottles that you see there and work from them instead of the bottles that the ink comes in. Blow dryer technique, let's talk about that. It's actually really easy. Don't be afraid of it. Try it. Like I said, you want to make sure your blow dryer has a low setting and a cool setting. That's very important because Yupo paper is plastic. And if you put anything hot to it, it's going to cause it to warp or melt. Let's talk about how you approach this so you don't make a huge mess. You're going to put down your ink, your alcohol or blender solution, whatever it is you're working with, come from the sides. Another thing, keep the hair dryer close to the paper. I have the hair dryer 1/4 of an inch up off of my paper. And I'm coming in from the sides only. I'm letting the air blow out and then hit that ink all around the sides. You're going to see me going back and forth around each side continually. Once it starts to dry some, then it's safe to put the dryer over the top of it and work with it that way a little bit. But when you first go at it, you definitely want to work from the sides. Let's talk about veining. So before I did the video, I tried veining with the Tim Holtz Gold Mixative. And I'm sure there are people out there that can do it, but for me, it just wasn't working. And I actually have the Panada Brass and Gold, and I found I got better results with that. And maybe it's just because I'm a beginner. So keep that in mind. But what I do is you have to lay down the brass or gold ink. And because it has pigments in it, you have to push that pigment up to the top. So you lay the gold down or the brass, whatever it is you're working with, and you take an alcohol or blender solution and you flood that area with that. And when you flood it, it pushes the pigment in those inks up to the top. And that's what gives you this veining. I also found out that when you do that, it tends to wash out the color underneath. So come back in with more color, and it will actually help create that veining even more with the color. So I was a little disappointed when I first started working with this, but then when I came back in the center there, you can see it has some pretty good veining. I laid more of that orange color down and moved it around with the dryer, and the veining just was like magic. It happened. I was just like, oh, okay, so that's how I'm going to do that. And so I did the same thing with the pink area. I went ahead, I put the gold down, I flooded it with alcohol and moved it around and got the veining started. And then I came back in and added more pink ink to that area and moved it around with the dryer again. And then it helps to create that veining. So it's real simple, actually. It's not as good as some of the ones I've seen, but for my first time out of the gate, I thought it turned out pretty good. Now, I've done this before, and as far as just laying inks down on paper and playing around with them, I've done this before, and it's fun because it's really interesting to see how these colors unfold. When you add the alcohol to them, you're going to start to see colors that make up this one color, and it's so much fun to see that play out in front of you. So for the greens I'm using, lettuce and citrus were the first two greens I laid out. You see how they had some yellow shades in them and some browns in them as we started to spread them out with alcohol. This one here is botanical, and it has blue undertones in it. And you're going to see that playing out as I continue to spread these out. Now, this is the technique where most people would use that handheld air blower. But I'm going to be honest with you, I found that my airbrush actually works better because it moves the ink out a little bit more than the handheld air blower does. It has more power to it. So it's obviously going to spread the ink out quicker and a little bit farther for you. And like I said, I have hand issues, so the airbrush is a must for me. But if you don't have hand issues, I've seen plenty of people get the same results with that handheld air blower. So it's just personal preference. So I'm going to take a tiny little brush and I'm dipping it in blender solution, and then I'm tapping it on my finger, and you're going to see all these little circles start to pop up on this paper here. And I've actually found that the blender solution works better for this. Now, they do have this technique where they come in and place tiny little dots all over the thing and create these gorgeous designs. I want to try that, and I know that the blender solution is going to give me better results doing that. So when I do attempt it, I'm going to use the blender solution. So this is a time where you really want to work with that blender solution opposed to that alcohol. This is Nara black Yupo paper. I like it. It's good stuff. I prefer the Tim Holtz black. It is absolutely stunning. It has this beautiful velvety texture to it, and it looks so luscious. It does. It's just beautiful, beautiful paper. Here, I'm going to show you the difference in the T-Rex blender solution and the isopropyl alcohol. When you're working on black Yupo paper, you need to lay down something that's opaque because alcohol inks are transparent. Unless you're working with the pearl inks, and those you'll be able to see on that black paper no problem. They look even better though if they have something opaque underneath them to help the color pop off more. So I use the Panada Blanco ink, and I'm going to show you the difference that the blender solution makes as opposed to the isopropyl alcohol. So on the left, we have a blender solution. On the right, we have the isopropyl alcohol. We're laying down the Panada Blanco ink on both. And then I'm going to come back in and I'm going to add the blender solution on the left and alcohol on the right. I'm going to bring the hair dryer in and we're going to move this ink around, and you're going to see right away what happens. So the blender solution is going to blend out. It's going to give you this gorgeous smoky look. It's so stunning. Then on the right with the alcohol, it's going to look like curdled milk. It's absolutely disgusting. Also, I have found that if you're using the alcohol pearl inks, blender solution is going to win hands down every time. The alcohol actually does the same thing with the pearl inks. It causes them to curdle. So you'll want to keep that in mind if you're wanting to use those. So this is a piece of the Tim Holtz black alcohol ink paper. And I went ahead and I laid down some of that opaque white on top of it because I really want these colors to come off of this. And these are the pearl inks, and I'm just laying inks down, putting some solution on them, coming in with the hair dryer, spreading them out a little bit. And when I first started this, I was like, I think this is going in the trash can. And I was not happy with it at all. The way that it was looking was just, it's horrible. It's terrible. But I stuck with it and saw it through, and I'm so happy that I did because I got some gorgeous, gorgeous results from it. So I've started with red and orange and yellow and green and blue down into purple and pink. And I wasn't feeling it. So I just squirted a bunch of blender solution over it, moved it around with my blow dryer, and I just kept coming in, filling in areas that I felt like needed attention until I got to an area where I felt okay about it. And it took me a while to do this. So I don't want you to be deceived by the time of this video. It actually took me about 30 minutes to do this background. Just trying to get it to where I liked it. That's all I was doing. I played around with it quite a bit, and I don't want you to think, oh, well, it only took you 4 minutes to do that. No, it took me about 30 minutes of playing with this to get it right, but that's okay. I enjoyed it. I had fun with it. Here's what I want to introduce to you. This stuff is amazing. This is Marabu alcohol ink, and this is called Rainbow, and it is amazing. I mean, you can see it there on the paper. It's stunning. Now, it is just like the mixatives that you get from Tim Holtz. So if you tip the bottle over and nothing comes out, tip it back over, give it a good shake, and then let it try it again, because it does have that little metal ball in there, and if you tip it just right and it's not shaken up that great, that ball will block the opening. So just keep that in mind if you're using it. But it is absolutely amazing. The results were, I was in love with it. I was like, I can't wait to do this again. Okay, so we finished playing around with all those alcohol inks. Real quick, I want to show you the ink lift technique here with the leaves background stamp. So this is a great way to use background stamps on alcohol ink blended backgrounds, is just to use that ink lift. It's amazing stuff. And it's just going to pick that alcohol ink up off of the Yupo paper, and then of course we'll have the stamp design left on there. I'm going to go ahead, open this up, take the Yupo paper out, and then just lay in a piece of 80-pound cardstock, because we have this ink on our stamp now and we can use that. So you can get a 2-for-1 from this technique here. You could do your ink blended background and then of course use this background that we're stamping now, because this one actually comes out so pretty. What I decided to do though was I'm going to use this underneath my Yupo paper because it's a light Yupo paper, so it's pretty translucent. And I'm going to offset it just a little bit when I run it through the die cut machine together. And it's going to give a lot more depth to our image underneath that Yupo paper. So what you're going to do is come in after your ink has sat for a few minutes and dried a little bit. And you're going to start to come in and wipe off some of the excess. And it's going to reveal the image even more that you stamped. So I had just re-inked my ink lift pad, so it probably had a little bit too much on it, and it did seem to take quite a bit away. I'm okay with that. It's not my favorite background out of this video, but that's okay. I'm still going to use it. We're going to go on this with some gold foil. This is a great way to add some pretty gold foil or any color foil that you want to your alcohol backgrounds. If there's some heavy veining in your alcohol ink, you're going to get great results with this transfer foil. I was happy with it. Like I said, I went ahead and I layered the Yupo paper onto the stamped 80-pound cardstock and then just added a sentiment to it. Here's the orange and pink that I did. Again, I die cut the happy birthday, added it to the card, and we're done. I cut this black Yupo paper, or the Tim Holtz cardstock, sorry about that, with a slimline die from Whimsy, added the hello, and we had a quick card done there. And it's a great way just to sit down and have a fun day for yourself where you're playing with these to create backgrounds, and then you can either save them for another day and make cards, or you can go at them with an idea and know what you're going to do and create some really cool cards using your Whimsy products. As always, everything is linked below for you. Guys, please know how much we appreciate you watching, spending time with us here on the Whimsy channel. Until next time, take care.